Week 4 start sit wide receivers. Keegan, Thomson, who are you starting this week at wide receiver?
So if you're tuning in and you haven't watched our matchup preview, I encourage you to go back to the Regression of the Mean channel. Go check out our Week 4 matchup preview. I highlighted the Indianapolis Colts versus the Los Angeles Rams matchup. And one thing that I hinted at was the matchup opportunity I feel is pretty awesome here for Puka Nacua. So Colts are currently allowing the 7th most points per game to the wide receiver position in terms of fantasy point production. Colts, one of the most heavy zone defenses in the NFL this season. But when they deploy the zone coverage, they rank 24th in coverage grade, according to PFF. Right now, Puka Nacua, as it stands, has 55.9 PPR points against zone and sees an absolutely bonkers 35.4% target rate against zone schemes. He's got 299 yards versus zone and has 26 receptions as well. His 84.9 PFF grade against zone is 7th among qualifying wide receivers. And he's currently 10th in fantasy points per route run. I feel like this is a absolute home run smash in what maybe is the last week without Cooper Kupp. Get in while the getting's hot, and let's see some Puka Nacua magic happen again.
You sure about that? You sure about that? That Cooper Kupp stat. I love Puka though. I'm all in on Puka this week. He's like a top 12 play. Aidan, who are you starting at wide receiver this week?
I can't believe it. I can't believe it after everything we said this summer. But I'm feeling it. I'm Adam feeling it this week, dude. I'm Adam feeling it, baby, and I'm not embarrassed to say it. Yeah, it's here we are. Here we are, week 4, and I'm feeling the vibes, dude. Coming off of back-to-back 20 burgers, dude. Last game he caught 11 of 14 targets, 145 yards and a tutty. He had 31.5 PPR points last week. Who does he play this week? The Minnesota Vikings, baby. Revenge game. Adam Thielen has returned. The Vikings have given up the 3rd most amount of fantasy points to wide receivers, giving up just over 50 points per game to the position. They are getting absolutely toasted through the air, especially to the wide receiver position. Andy Dalton, I can't believe it. We've already highlighted this in past episodes. Andy Dalton is absolutely elevating this Carolina Panthers offense. For as long as he plays quarterback with Bryce Young out, Adam Thielen is like, dude, he's like a solid wide receiver 2, borderline 1. This is ridiculous what we're seeing. We thought this guy was complete dust. Adam Thielen is, I think, a great play. That secondary is not good. They're not getting a ton of pressure. Give me Adam Thielen. I cannot believe it. That is my start of the week.
Interesting thing with Thielen is they've actually moved him into the slot as a full-time slot player, and I think that's helped
70%,
him
like 70%.
Get open. I really hope Andy Dalton plays. As a Bryce truther, I never thought I would say that, but that is where we're at.
My take doesn't count if Bryce plays, but Andy Dalton is like
no, the milk may spoil. Just gonna throw that out there, but we'll see. But I hear that we're writing a caveat to spoiled milk. It's like I didn't mean to leave it out, but I might have. My start of the week at wide receiver is Nico Collins, a darling of this podcast when we were talking over the summer. So he's facing off against the Steelers. The Steelers defense has surrendered the 5th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers. Nico Collins has been making a killing over the middle of the field this season. He's second only to Tyreek Hill in yards and receptions over the middle of the field. And he's actually generated 7.4 yards after catch per reception as a receiver over the middle of the field. Really impressive stuff for Collins through the beginning of the year. The Steelers' defense has been garbanzo beans guarding the middle of the field this year. 2nd most yards given up, most receptions, most targets. This game is being played indoors and ranks 3rd in adjusted pace. I expect C.J. Stroud to get home this week, throwing to his stud wide receiver Nico Collins over the middle of the field. Before we move on to our sits of the week, if you've made it halfway through this video, we appreciate you for following along, for being a part of the Mean Team. If you haven't had a chance yet, go ahead, like the video, subscribe to this channel, turn on the notifications. We appreciate the support. It means a lot to us. Moving on to sits of the week, Keegan, Thomson. who is going to be on your bench as a wide receiver this week?
I'm going to rip a little parlay off your QB sit of the week this week, Shaun, that we highlighted in our QB video. And I think it's a good week to sit Jordan Addison. Carolina has actually been pretty good against wide receivers this year. They're allowing the fourth fewest fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position right now. I think what I'm kind of like going into this week thinking and observing here is KJ Osborne is the wide receiver and 2 wide receiver sets currently as it stands across from Justin Jefferson. And until I see that change, Jordan Addison will just remain a heavy boom bust play. So when it comes to looking at your matchups and who they're going up against, Carolina's been pretty good, like I mentioned, against fantasy wide receivers. And I think that's just a tough matchup overall for the Vikings pass game, which feels weird to say. I don't think I would usually be thinking that about Carolina, but here we are. He watched his yards per target go from 10 all the way up to 14.4 due to some deep balls, all the way down, plummeted to 6.5 last week. Right now, Underdog Lobby has him projected at 3 receptions, 39.5 receiving yards. Love the player. Ooh. Hate the matchup this week.
Oh, that's bad. 39 over under. Rough.
That's
Aidan,
tricky. Yeah, it's not very high.
Who are you sitting at wide receiver this week?
So I know what everyone's been thinking. Everyone's been messaging me about it. Hey, Aidan, we haven't had a BOGO in a while. We want a BOGO. We want a BOGO. We want to buy one, and we want a freebie. We want a freebie. So guess what? I'm back, baby. What a deal from Aidan. I'm sitting both Tennessee pass catchers, baby. This offense stinks.
That's
both
the
of these guys stink.
BOGO ever.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, I don't know if this feels like a BOGO that
just
much.
Went for the layup. It's a layup.
This kind of feels. This feels like the. Oh, guys, be careful! Somebody smashed my window and left Treylon Burks and DeAndre Hopkins shares. That's what this feels like.
If you haven't fully given up on these guys, dude, it's so dark. Just listen to these these averages through 3 games. DeAndre Hopkins is catching 5 of 8 targets for 51 yards. Has not found pay dirt. Burks has caught 2 of 4 for 34 yards, 0 touchdowns. Bengals are in the top half of the NFL in terms of passing yards allowed. Only allowed 4 touchdowns through the air. This offense stinks, man. Ryan Tannehill is a war criminal. He's likely in fantasy jail. We just haven't really discussed it. Maybe we have, actually. But it's so bad, dude.
He's so
It's bad. This guy's so unbelievably cooked, and this offense is just bad. He threw for like 100 yards last week. If you're still putting either one of these guys in your lineup, dude, just shoot me DM. Like maybe someone needs a hug. I don't know what it is. Like, I'll help you because it shouldn't be this way, man. This is more like buy half, get half free. Like, this doesn't really equal 2. This is like 2 guys together that equal maybe 1 as a total. This feels like when I said Cole Kmet, and it was like, well, duh. Well, yeah, this is a BOGO, but like, it's a bad one. It's like an expired. It's like the bad bagels that get put out and you get them for really cheap.
Look, if you have Treylon Burks still on your roster, you're hanging in tough right now. Just straight up, I've dropped him in a league. Sitting DeAndre Hopkins makes sense. It's brutal. He's injured. Tannehill's dust. It's a really not an ideal matchup. My sit of the week is Christian Kirk. For the Jacksonville Jaguars playing the Falcons in London, 6:30 game for us West Coasters. The Falcons have been the 6th stingiest team to wide receivers this season. Turns out bringing Jesse Bates in, that safety, I think, has really helped. Their cornerback room is much improved. The Jaguars' pass game has been choppy at best. Lawrence they've left a lot on the table.
Tons of drops.
And Kirk's been solid, except for that terrible Week 1 performance. So Kirk, typically when he does well, he hits home against zone coverage on digs, posts, corners, and curls. And the Falcons have surrendered the 17th fewest yards on those routes. So, again, you want to know really why I'm sitting Christian Kirk this week? London games are super weird. The Falcons have had a pretty good secondary, and they're pretty run-happy, so game script. And then the reason why we're sitting Christian Kirk is because the Calvin Ridley revenge tour, baby. Revenge season is upon us. Revenge narrative. Keegan knows revenge pays, revenge sells. We follow revenge where we can. Calvin Ridley doesn't get revenge in Atlanta. He has to fly across the pond to play a wacky, weird Sunday morning game in England. I don't really want anything to do with that matchup beside of Calvin Ridley and maybe somebody else, teasing it for later. But I don't know. I'm sitting Kirk. I'm riding Calvin Ridley, and I think this matchup is just weird. So get Kirk on the bench if you can.
I kind of like Christian Kirk this week.
What'd you say, Keegan? What'd you say?
I kind of like Christian Kirk this week.
Who the fuck said that?
Well, I hated Brock Purdy in quarterbacks, so we're even. No, why do you like Kirk? It's fine. Why do you like him?
I just think Zay Jones banged up. I think the passing offense for Jacksonville is going to regress positively. I think there's lots and lots of food to eat on the buffet de Lawrence.
I'm with Keegan here. I think they've left so much on the table. There's leftovers in the fridge, and I think they're gonna finish them this week.
Calvin Ridley's finna eat against his old team. I just said finna on a podcast. I can't believe that's where we got to at this point in the evening. But
they can both eat.
We'll talk about this. And milk was a bad choice on Sunday. We'll see where this lands. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.